That should be going now. Welcome and welcome to this event co-organised between Durham Uni UCU branch and the India Labour Solidarity Network, and I'm really pleased that we're able to welcome Professor Purvanand and Pranav Jivan to speak today, and Latika Singer from India Labour Solidarity to speak about the politics of higher education and organising and what it means to be an activist both in student and staff unions across different campuses and universities in India. Latika, would you like to introduce our speakers any further, or would you like to say a few words as well before I introduce Apurvanand as our first speaker? Oh, you're muted.
I'll introduce India Labour Solidarity, and I thought it's best if the speakers introduce themselves as they speak. That's great. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here to listen and talk to us today. And as Saul said, I'm Latika. I'm an independent scholar and member of India Labour Solidarity, which is a new initiative to promote solidarity between workers and their trade union and labour movements in the UK and India. Now, the current UK and Indian governments are keen to strengthen relations between the two countries by deepening trade, industrial, business relations between the two countries, as well as strengthening links between all this and higher education in both countries. At the same time, India is slashing back basic labor rights through a new set of labor codes, bringing in changes to its citizenship laws, and increasingly corporatizing higher education through its new education policy released in 2020, which will all negatively impact access to education itself for thousands of young people from many marginalized communities, caste-oppressed communities, Muslim communities, indigenous communities, and subsequently reduce the already inadequate representation of these communities in India's bureaucracy, administrative services, higher education, faculty and management, and the media, the judiciary, the business and financial worlds. It can impact on all that. I'm going to stop here now and look forward to hearing both our speakers really who are speaking from the ground as of now to talk about all these things in more detail. So shall we begin with Professor Purvanand?
Thank you very much, Latika. Thank you very much, organizers of the event, for having me here as part of the conversation. It's very important to know and understand what's happening in India, especially in the universities across states. And so we need to understand the nature or the architecture of higher education in India. There are many different kinds of universities and higher education institutions. One is central universities, which are funded by the union government. And then there are state universities, which are largely funded by the states. Then you have professional institutions like IIT and IIM, Indian Institute of Technology and Indian Institute of Management. Then you have a large number of engineering colleges. Then you have a huge number of private institutions, and they outnumber public institutions, we must remember. And these are mostly professional, quote unquote, institutions, engineering or medical institutions. Then you have a share of privately funded and privately run universities like Azim Premji University or Ashoka University or Jindal University or other universities. So we have a whole spectrum and very different kinds of higher education institutions we are talking about. And even when we talk about central universities, there are two sets of central universities, one which are the older ones and one which was set up in 2009 and after that. So these are new central universities, and they have different rules, different regulations which conduct them. So this diversity we need to keep in mind while talking about what organizing campuses means in India. That's very important. So while when I start, I'd like to talk about what's happening in Delhi presently. Yesterday, the students of Jawaharlal Nehru University tried to screen a documentary produced by the BBC, which talks about the happenings in Gujarat in 2002. So they faced power cut, and then they faced stone pelting by the student organization affiliated to the ruling party, Bharatiya Janata Party, and the student organization is known as Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, ABVP. A day before that, students in Central University of Hyderabad had screened this documentary as a mark of protest because the Indian government had ordered Twitter and other social media platforms to take down this documentary. YouTube and other platforms were ordered to take down this documentary. So students of Hyderabad Central University screened it, and they did a public screening. And for that, we are told that criminal cases have been registered against them. Today, as I was going to join this conversation, I was told that police in huge numbers has been deployed outside Jamia, and internet has been cut off to prevent the students of Jamia Millia Islamia University in Delhi to watch this. They were going to publicly screen this documentary. The first part of this document. The second part has came last night. It was aired by the BBC last night. So now we have both the parts. But this incident tells us what's happening on the campuses. You cannot speak, you cannot express your views. I would recall my personal experience. I was invited by a student organization to speak at JNU. And when I reached there, I saw complete darkness, but only in the area where we were going to have this meeting. So in other hostels, there was electricity, but in that area, electricity was cut off. So these are the new tactics to disallow or prevent students from assembling, from meeting, from talking to each other about issues they think are important. And this is happening across India. So one is that. Second, institutionally, universities did have provision to have student unions. They did have provision to have regular elections to elect student unions. But we have seen over last 4 or 5 years, and pandemic has contributed to it, student authorities taking advantage of the pandemic and either delay the elections or disallow elections. That makes it very difficult for student organizations to reach out to students, to mobilize them, and to unionize them. So that is something we must keep in mind when we are talking about Indian campuses or Indian universities. Now, private universities don't have institutional provision for elected student unions. So they have largely nominated student union, and they are presented as a democratic platform for students. But as we saw in the case of Ashoka University 3 years back, when the then Vice Chancellor, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, was forced to resign. Hello?
Yes, please continue.
He was forced to resign, and we didn't see any protest, any significant protest from the student community. It did hold an assembly. It did do a symbolic protest, but after that it was over, as if nothing had happened, and it was as if life was absolutely normal on the campus of Ashoka. That was very shocking because Pratap Bhanu Mehta is a renowned intellectual, and he had made it very clear in his resignation letter that situation was created in which it was no longer tenable for him to remain the Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University. But that didn't disturb the Ashoka community, neither the teachers nor the students. So what we saw in Ashoka, that there was no protest from teachers. And why? Because there's no teachers union in universities like Ashoka or Jindal or Kriya or other Shivnadar universities. So this absence of unions of teachers, and it also applies to newly set up central universities, which were set up after 2019. So either they don't have teachers union or they have dormant teachers union. So we don't see any activity, any collective activity from the teaching community. We have also seen in many universities new conduct rules being applied. And what these new conduct rules do, they treat teachers as civil servants or as government servants. They are not allowed to air their views, and it also applies to institutions like All India Institute of Medical Sciences and similar institutions. A colleague from All India Institute of Medical Sciences told me that he cannot write an article without getting permission from his director. So these new conduct rules have made it impossible for teachers to air their views freely in public, which is, I think, a very crucial role teachers perform in open societies. Yes, it's a mural, but it's an important part of our duty to start a conversation with the society or within the society. But now teachers are being disallowed to do that. So that is something we also need to keep in mind. And third, and I will stop here, is physical violence. Because what happens when student organizations, and on Indian campuses, traditionally, you have different types of student organizations. There is one student union, which is elected by students, but there are student organizations which profess different kinds of political ideologies. For example, you have All India Student Federation, which is allied to Communist Party of India. You have Student Federation of India, which is allied to the Communist Party of India Marxist. You have All India Student Association, which is allied to the Communist Party of India Marxist Leninist. Then you have other student organizations allied to the Congress Party or Rashtriya Janata Dal. And then you have Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, which is a sister organization of Bharatiya Janata Party, which is ruling many states of India and presently heading the Union Government of India. Now, this Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad enjoys total impunity when it attacks physically and does violence on campus, and it doesn't allow other student organizations to function. I witnessed recently an attack on students who were campaigning for the release of Hani Babu and Ji Sai Baba. They were attacked brutally by the members of the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad. Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad is allowed to have meetings in the universities, but other student organizations are not allowed to have their meetings or assemblies in the universities. So this is a kind of, I would say, state-sponsored violence done through Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, that as we witnessed last night at the campus of Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we come across such news regularly from other campuses as well. So teachers have suffered suspension, disciplinary action because ABVP has complained against them, and teachers feel very unsafe in their classroom. An assistant professor of the Central University of Haryana was suspended because he was teaching a course on fascism, and he had made a PowerPoint presentation in which some slides were trying to make comparison between the German situation and Indian situation. So complaint was lodged against him by Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, and he was suspended. So similar cases we have heard from Central University of Haryana, Jodhpur University, Central University of Jharkhand, and other universities. A professor of the Central University, Jamia Millia Islamia, Professor Sonia Surabhi Gupta, was suspended. And why? Because she was the person in charge to oversee election to the teachers' union. The university authorities disallowed that and suspended her. She was only an election officer appointed by the teachers' union, but she was suspended. And mind you, she is a professor, a senior professor at Jamia Millia Islamia University. So we have these restrictive activities, we have these punitive actions taken by universities, we have these institutional impediments now being put the road of organizing activities. Organizing activity in the campuses has now become very, very difficult because you are not allowed to, you are not allowed space, you won't be you won't be granted permission to hold meeting, etc. So now it has, the university campuses have largely become silent. And here I stop. And if there are questions, I will take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Purvan. And that was a very detailed and sobering and even chilling account. And you're in the middle of all this, and we really appreciate you joining us today. I'll now ask Pranav to talk, and then take it on from there. Over to you, Pranav.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, hi, I am Pranav Jeevan, and I am currently doing PhD in Artificial Intelligence in IIT Bombay, the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. I am a member of a student collective in IIT Bombay called Ambedkar Periyar Phule Study Circle, the APPSC. So I joined IIT Bombay in 2019, and I have been working with APPSC. And APPSC, to give a context, the Indian Institute of Technologies are a group of technical institutes in India, which is like engineering colleges, basically. And they have been they are like central government funded institutes, which are considered as this premier or elite institutions. And compared to the other colleges in India, just like Professor Abdulwanand mentioned, we cannot cluster all these institutes together in one category. Everything functions completely differently. And IITs are one such institutes which are funded heavily by the government because of the kind of people who study there. IITs historically have been very exclusionary towards the marginalized sections of the society. In India, we have a system called caste system, which divides society hierarchically into upper caste, lower caste, untouchables, and because of this particular social categorization, because IITs have been considered as these elite institutions for decades, ever since its inception, IITs have been the students who go to IIT, the faculty positions in IITs, everything has been monopolized by the so-called upper caste. Now, in India, every university, basically every university that is funded by the government, should implement something called the reservation system, which was actually it's a constitutional safeguard for the marginalized sections in the society, which was drafted, which was negotiated by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar when he was drafting the constitution, so that the so-called backward classes, who comprises of more than 80% of the Indian population, they will get sufficient representation within the political and academic and bureaucratic spaces in the Indian state and Indian society. So, but what happened is, even after 70 to 75 years of independence, these elite spaces, before Lotika had told how there is no representation of the marginalized sections in media or academia, judiciary, bureaucracy. Similarly, in this IIT academic space, there has never been a significant representation proportional to their population. And this reservation system, which was actually implemented to so that this representation will be ensured, this was blatantly violated by these institutes. So my organization, APPSC, have been trying to bring out this issue of the lack of representation of the students and lack of representation of the marginalized sections in the faculty of IITs, and we do it through filing RTIs, the Right to Information, using Right to Information Act. We file RTIs so that we can get information about what is the actual composition of the faculties, the students, where is this exclusion happening? Is it happening in the written exam? Is it happening in the application stage or in the exams? And we try to understand exactly how this is happening, where the bias is being enforced, and how to address this. So along with this, we have been trying to meet with workers and understand their issues and raise those issues with the administration. We try to so IITs have an internal kind of student elections, which is very non-transparent and very arbitrary. For example, the election manifesto by a candidate has to be authorized by the administration before it can be the student doesn't have the freedom to actually create a manifesto for themselves. The administration should vet it. So this kind of there is a outward appearance of democracy in the system, but it is actually completely controlled by how the administration wants the students to behave. And since it's an engineering institute, and the kind of the students who actually come here belong to a particular elite background, there is a lack of being they actually kind of what to say, they try to glorify being apolitical. They don't want to in some sense understand what the issues are. They don't in some sense care about these things, and because of that, the space where you have to actually raise against, for example, when IIT arbitrarily increases the fees of students, completely disregarding how it will affect the students coming from financially backward classes, these issues are completely sidelined, and when there is no space for students to actually raise their concerns with the administration. The representatives who are actually or so-called elected by these procedures, they will never stand with the students in such issues, which are actually student-centric issues. They will always try to justify the administration's reasons to the students who actually try to bring about these issues. So APPSC was actually formed in 2015 after a suicide of a Dalit student who was in IIT because of the caste harassment that he was facing. And a group of students who came together started this particular collective, and immediately after that was the Rohit Vemula incident in Hyderabad Central University, which in some sense mobilized a anti-caste movement across all the Indian universities. So 2016 is a very interesting time because the Indian state started coming down very heavily on various universities and student organizations. It was the time when sedition was being used, the law of sedition was being used to silence the JNU protests. An APSC, Ambedkar Periyar Study Circle, which was formed in IIT Madras, was the higher education minister of India personally sent a mail to the director of IIT Madras to shut down a student collective which was trying to raise anti-caste awareness within the campus. So these actions in some sense propelled other students across different IITs to form students collective to raise this particular issue, and our collective was also in some sense formed and established as a reaction to these government actions. But ever since the organizations was formed, so every organization, student collective in IIT gets institute recognition. And institute recognition is important because, for example, if we want to have an event in which we want to inform the student community that, okay, we are inviting a speaker and this is the topic that we are going to discuss, please come and attend the event. We usually do it through the institutional email. But since the institute till now has never actually given recognition to such kind of political anti-caste student collectives, because once we get that access, we will get to share our ideas to a much wider audience, and they don't want that. And compared to other student collectives which are operating in the campus, who gets full access to all these resources. Another thing is when we want to organize an event, the booking of venue. Normally, if you want to host an event in a classroom, we need to get permission for that through a faculty. So if we approach a faculty to actually conduct an event, the institute will immediately try to intimidate that faculty, asking them why did you give permission for this particular event? And for the last 8 years that we have been functioning, we have been going through this struggle on a everyday basis. Whenever we want to have an event, we have to always try to navigate all these challenges. So since we don't have access to the email, we try to use posters in hostels and academic spaces. And the moment we paste our posters and we go, immediately the security of the institute will be alerted to remove those posters from the spaces. So even conducting a small talk or an academic discussion on any of the actual political issue or social issues that is actually important for the students to understand, the institute immediately puts a roadblock to it. So I joined in 2019 in IIT Bombay, and it was the time when I joined that the Kashmir issue was there. The Kashmir lost the statehood and it was made a union territory, and there was no discussion on this particular issue in the campus. And when we tried to organize a panel discussion on the Kashmir issue, and we had booked a seminar hall in one of the departments, 1 hour before the specified time, they came and locked the room and left. And we then had to find a room at the last moment. So we went out to the ground and we had to sit outside and conduct the particular event. Another thing that happened, Professor Abdul mentioned, how in JNU they shut down the electricity when they were trying to show the film. So during the anti-CA protest, we conducted a night vigil in solidarity with the Shaheen Bagh protesters on Women's Day in 2020 March. And when the institute understood that we are conducting a night vigil, it was a space where there was enough light, like there was street lights and everything. It was a big space where everyone could sit all night. The institute cleverly shut down the power to just that block, so that we will have to sit in darkness, and we had to arrange our own lights. So like these are like the institute doesn't directly tell you not to do stuff, but they kind of shut down all the ways or create roadblocks so that conducting an event or doing something becomes very difficult. It's not just student activities that the institute will be like cracking down, like trying to obstruct. There was an academic conference on the history of Indian political left that was supposed to happen last month. It was an actual academic conference in which dignitaries were invited, students had submitted their papers to present and everything. And just one day, like on the eve of the conference was cancelled. Because when the government found out that an academic conference on the political left was happening, immediately they called the director and asked them to cancel it. And the mail that came telling that the event is getting cancelled didn't even have a reason on why it was cancelled. And when they after like when they felt that there might be a protest and they had to give some reason to justify it, the reason that they gave was the funding that the institute receives from the central government. There are certain branches under which they can spend, and this particular conference does not fall under any of these branches, so we cannot fund this conference, so we have to cancel it. So then the question was like, didn't they know that, because the conference was announced like 2 months before, the entire 2 months they didn't know that this was outside their purview, and it was only on the eve that they understood it. So like, and even when it's not just students, even when the faculties, when they try to question this particular like this arbitrariness with which they are being shut down, and like what kind of research they should do, like what kind of statements they can release. So when we had a protest for recently, like in last semester, there was a fee hike in IIT, and we told the institute that we are having a protest. The first thing the institute did was to make sure that no one else will join, none of the students will join the protest. A mail was sent to all the students telling that if any student who joins the protest, penal action will be taken against them and they will be removed from their hostels. We went ahead with the protest, but the kind of fear that because the IITs are an institute where it is like so hard to get into. Any student who gets in, it's like they don't want to lose that the seat that they get in, because it's after like years of effort that they reach a place like this. And when they threaten students with termination on a regular basis, so that like no matter what kind of rules that they do undemocratically, like autocratically, they like the students should just obey and shouldn't talk back. So this kind of like unquestioning obedience is being demanded in a very arrogant way, and we have been trying to counter it like in every way that we can, but it is like, yeah, it is getting harder over time, because earlier even the faculties are now being scared to actually come out in open to lend us support, even though they actually some of them actually are like want to support us in some sense. But yeah, the nature of like what to say, the scope for democracy in the campus is getting reduced day by day.
Thank you so much, Pranav. It was, yeah, all your everyday examples really helped to almost see the picture as to what is going on. So thank you so much for the way you described the situation in these IITs. And I know you mentioned that one of the issues is that there are such difficult places to get into. And yes, I cannot reel the numbers off right now, but if you hear the numbers of people who apply to the numbers of people who actually get in, you will be able to appreciate that. And I don't know, Pranav, yeah, maybe that's something, if you can just quickly say that.
Oh, so IITs, the entrance exam for IITs are considered as one of the toughest in the world, and the pass percentage or the acceptance rate of IITs is like it's much lower, like 100 times lower than those of the Ivy Leagues like Harvard and Stanford. So like actually it is much harder for an Indian student to get into an IIT than for them to get into MIT or Oxford or Harvard. Yeah, it's like almost
that's a really good way to put it into context, and what a way to then hold that as on your head as to you cannot say anything. Thank you so much. So Saul, would you like to come in at this point?
I'm happy to come in now, or I can come in after you've spoken a bit about ILS. Either is fine.
Yeah, I think I'll be happy to answer questions about ILS rather than me saying more. I mean, I've already said a bit in my introduction anyway. So over to you. So shall we stop the?
Yeah, I'll stop the recording unless I think I'll just stop the recording now, and I'll share that with both of the speakers and also with ILS afterwards. But before I do stop it, I just want to say thank you to both speakers and to Latika as well for helping coordinate this event. And I think it needs to be the start of a wider conversation within the colleagues and comrades across the UK university sector and within our union as well. And I think there's work that we will do drawing on this meeting to get these stories told on a much wider basis about what's happening within the higher education sector, because active solidarity needs to be the basis for this sort of international relationship, and I'm sure that's absolutely key to the work of ILS, and we will help from a rank and file perspective however we can at a local level. So I'll stop recording there,